Today, we are diving deep into a truly fascinating ancient text, the Vigyan Bhairav Tantra. It's basically a manual of techniques for transforming consciousness, and we're going to focus on one of its most powerful concepts, the secret of the third eye. So, the entire text, all 112 techniques, spring from this one question. It's asked by Devi, who represents the feminine principle, to Shiva, the ultimate consciousness. And get this, she's not looking for some dry philosophical answer. She's in a state of absolute love, where the person she loves is dissolving, and she's asking, what is the formless reality behind everything? How can I know it? And this right here, this is the crucial difference. Shiva doesn't respond with a big theory. See, philosophy gives you answers, right? Ideas to think about, things to believe in. But Tantra, that's a whole different ballgame. Tantra basically says, forget belief. Here's a technique. You do this, and you will know for yourself. For Tantra, doing is knowing. It's a science of direct personal experience. So you might be wondering, why do we even need these techniques? Well, it's because of the way most of our minds work, which this text describes as, honestly, a constant state of chaos and inner division. And here is the absolute core of the problem. We all have this natural point of balance, a silent center deep inside us. But we almost never live there, do we? We live out on the edge, on the periphery, completely off balance. And this creates this constant inner tension, this fundamental anguish that just hums in the background of our lives. I mean, this just nails it, doesn't it? You could be in a perfectly quiet room, totally by yourself, but your mind is a crowded party. It's full of people, memories, arguments, plans, worries. It's always looking outwards, projecting outwards, even when there's nothing actually out there to look at. You see, according to this text, the mind isn't really a thing at all. It's a process. It's a constant movement of thoughts, all based on the past. That's why it's always old, you know? It's never truly here in the present moment. And this endless movement is the very source of all that inner turmoil that keeps us from seeing things as they really are. Okay, so if our normal state is just this constant, outward-flowing distraction, Tantra comes in with a really radical solution. It says, find a new door for your consciousness. Find a new direction for all that energy to flow. And this is the key question, isn't it? Think about it. All our life energy is constantly streaming out through our senses, through our eyes, our ears, our touch, always trying to meet the world. But what would happen if you could just stop that flow? Where would all that bottled up energy go? And this is where the third eye comes in. Now, it's really important to get this. Tantra doesn't talk about this as some kind of weird physical organ you're born with. It's a potential. It's simply the nearest, most direct path for your consciousness to take when it can't go outward anymore. It's the point where your energy turns back on itself and starts flowing inward. It's actually a pretty simple, almost mechanical process. You know, think of a garden hose. If you block the main opening with your thumb, the water doesn't just stop. It finds the next easiest way out, right? It's the exact same principle with our consciousness. When we block the senses, the energy has to go somewhere. So it reroutes, moving inward through this point between the eyes, and suddenly it opens up a whole new inner dimension. Okay, so that's the theory. But remember, Tantra is all about doing. It's not about just thinking about cool ideas. So let's look at one of the oldest and honestly one of the simplest techniques the Vigyan Bhairav Tantra gives us to actually experience this for ourselves. And seriously, this isn't some complex ritual. It's a direct, physical method anyone can try right now. The book has 112 of these techniques, but this one is just so direct. It perfectly demonstrates the whole principle we've been talking about. The technique is unbelievably simple. You just close all the openings of your head with your hands. You gently block your eyes, your ears, your nostrils, and your mouth. And bam! Suddenly your consciousness, which is always flowing out, is stopped. It has nowhere to go. And in that moment of complete stillness, you can't help but become aware of an inner space. And all that energy naturally begins to gather at the point we call the third eye. So what happens when you actually experience the center space? Well, according to the text, it's not just some cool, fleeting sensation. It's a complete root and branch transformation of your entire being. So here's the real game changer. Once you know this inner center, fear becomes impossible, just impossible. Why? Because you realize your true self isn't your fragile body or your chaotic mind. You realize you are part of an eternal existence that cannot be touched, cannot be destroyed. And that constant, nagging search for security, for validation from others, it just vanishes. And this experience leads to the ultimate, ecstatic cry of the mystics throughout history. Aham Brahmasmi. I am the absolute, I am the universe. Now, this isn't an ego trip. It's the exact opposite. It's the profound realization that the separation between me and the universe was just an illusion created by the mind all along. I mean, the contrast is just stark. You go from a life defined by fear, anxiety, and turmoil to one of absolute fearlessness. The crushing feeling of being a small, lonely, separate person completely dissolves into an experience of oneness with everything. This isn't just a mood swing. It's a fundamental shift in the very ground of your being. And this isn't just theory, This is played out in human history. There was a Sufi mystic named Mansoor who had this very experience. He was so overwhelmed with ecstasy that he ran through the streets shouting Anan Haq, which means I am the truth, or I am God. Of course, the religious authorities of the time, they just didn't get it. They saw it as the ultimate blasphemy and condemned him to a truly brutal death. But the story goes that as he was being killed, he was laughing. He knew that whatever they were destroying, it wasn't him. He had found the part of himself that is indestructible. So, what's the big takeaway from all of this? How does this ancient wisdom actually apply to us, right here, right now? Well, it's really an invitation to completely reimagine your own reality. So the third eye, in the end, isn't some kind of supernatural power. It's a beautiful metaphor for this radical shift in perspective. Our entire lives, we are taught to look out at the world, like we're separate observers watching a movie. This teaching says there's another way, to turn our awareness in and experience the entire universe within ourselves. And that really leaves us with a final, powerful question to think about. We spend so much time and energy trying to change our external reality, right? Our jobs, our relationships, our situations, all in the hope that it will change how we feel inside. But what if we've had it completely backwards this whole time? The Vigyan Bhairav Tantra suggests that if you change your consciousness first, your entire reality will have no choice but to transform right along with it.